Alrighty then. For Your Life, off Led Zeppelin's album Presence from 1976, recorded in 1975 in Munich, Germany, at a studio called Musicland, which was in the basement of a hotel, which was called something Waffle or something. I'm not speaking down about Germans, but I don't know what it's kind of, my dad lived in Germany for a while, so the stuff of waffle or the Waffle. Robert Plant was in a wheelchair because he was in an accident a couple months before. And Jimmy Page actually on this song uses a Stratocaster that he got from, not Graham Parsons, somebody Parsons, Gene Parsons or somebody. But anyway, so I think Gene Parsons actually was a pretty big deal, I think. So it was blue, and I think you can see him play it at Knebworth and stuff. But anyway, so he does the song, most of the guitars with this, For Your Life. So again, in this era, kind of like with the Rover and Sick Again and some of these other tunes, especially off Presence, there's a lot of jump-ins on the beat. So like with the intro of this song, for example. You know what I mean? Like a lot of like on the ands before the downbeat. Right, so the song comes in. I'm wearing this just to protect my hearing, because the drums are loud these days. And I adjusted the ragtime back to where I normally like it. Forget about the kids. Those little guys can reach up and do it. All right, so song starts. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's kind of the lead-in. And you'll find in the verse of the song, there's kind of two parts. Well, there are two parts. There's da, ba ba da da, and then it goes into the ba ba da da, da 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 da, ba ba da 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 da, ba ba, back into the other part. Da, okay. So the main part of the main kind of pattern or archetype of the first part of the verse. Okay, so we have the verse, 2 chunks. It's kind of like, you always have kind of the lead-in. Okay? And the basic paradigm's kind of like 3, 4. But Bonham, as it goes on, starts adding in more bass drum notes. So like, with the exception of the intro and a couple times earlier on, it's more like... Okay, so essentially there's 4 parts. So you have like, in the first part, again, I always overcomplicate things, but it wouldn't be fun without it. But, the stuff is kind of complicated. It's simple in its little pieces, but it kind of builds up to be a complicated hunk of complicaciones. So you have the first part, ba, 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 da, da, and then you have the second part, ba, ba, da, da. Okay, so in the first part, there's sort of a pattern where Bonham sort of plays like, ba, and then there's like a snare fill, and then sometimes another snare fill, and then no snare fill but a hi-hat, and then the last one goes into the chain. So that's kind of the general paradigm, okay? So 1, then a snare fill into the and of the 4, 2, then another snare from the and of the 4, then the 3rd, there's a hi-hat, and then the 4th, there's a double on the snare into the next part. Okay, so we're in the next part of the verse, which goes, and almost invariably every time, it goes 3, boo, 3. That's the loop of the whole ba ba da da ba da 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 ba ba da da ba ba ba. Okay, again. So if we go into that, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'll go soft and slow, like you like it. So ready? Okay, so in the second part, the first section of it goes But on the drums it goes. And interestingly, later in the song, that second grouping might not be doubled. It might go. Okay? But then the next, do you know what I'm saying? So, but let's say for now that in the whole song it goes. Ooh, that's an interesting thing. I do that all the time when I ass around with the song. The snare drum doubles only the first time around in the section. So. Okay? And of course, every time in the second part of it, there's a hi-hat part there. Every time. So again, coming into the part. Every time, okay? In the whole part again. 3, 4. And I don't know if there's ever a coming out of it. I think sometimes he does throw a snare. Okay. So, that's there you have the verse. And then what I'll call the bridge is the ba-ba-da, ba-da-da, ba-ba-da-da-da, ra-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, ba-ba-da, ba-ba-da, ba-da-da-da-da. Okay, and then we're back into the ba. And here comes another verse, right? And then he starts the same general thing again. Although the snare hits in there, he kind of starts to add more snares. It's like, or he'll do. He adds those in the verse part too. So anyway, into the climb, into what I call the bridge. So what I think he does, he plays it real simple first. So like ba, 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 da, da. Okay? And now, because he does it kind of differently a couple different times, but generally it's real simple. So just without all the noise. So and he, again, he'll add another bass drum note, but the first time around it's like okay? And what he does sometimes is he'll leave the bass drum note off, sometimes on the downbeat, which is a classic Bonham thing to do. So, no bass drum here, because he's kind of, and then he does it but he does it the second time. So let me play it the way I hear it on the record the first time. So. Ooh, you know, sorry. There's always a roll there going into it. Forgive me. You know, I'm not God for the love of God. All right. So. Okay. Now that might be a little busier the way he does it later on, but essentially so. Okay, that's the whole climby part. So it's kind of, it's really just kind of like okay, yeah. So I'm always so nitpicky on the details. Bear with me here. I know it's so the first time it's kind of like. You'll notice the first time after the crash, there's not a bass drum right after. But I think generally the part is, again, like he'll add more bass drum notes as it goes on. So generally we'll say, into a roll. And then we're rolling again into the verse, okay? Do the same verse part again. But here there's a bass drum note. Like on the intro, there's not an extra bass. So in the intro it goes. This time, it's like. And then what happens is we do the ba ba da ba ba da, same thing. But this time that part the bridge then goes around twice again. But on the second one we do the jump into, I won't call it the chorus. I guess everyone else would call this the bridge. It would be like the ba ba da ba da ba ba da ba ba da ba ba, right? So we go. So what'll happen there, again, we're in the second climb up, the second chunk of climb up in the song. Ba ba da ba ba da ba ba da 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 boom ra ta 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 ba ba da ba ba da ba ba. Okay? Ba ba. And then this becomes the downbeat. Okay? So they're adding a quarter note in there. Ba da da ba ba da ba ba da 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 ra ta 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 ba ba da ba ba da ba ba da 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 ba ba da ba ba da ba. Okay, that's what happens there. So. So what happens there? So ba da da ba da da. So we're gonna go from that crash, okay? So, but then he goes right into the ba da ba ba da ba ba da ba 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 ba. Now those ba da ba ba are essentially, they're not. He's actually just playing two notes, you know, like the triplet with the hi-hat, like from Good Times, Bad Times, and all sorts of other stuff. It goes. Da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da. You can hear it real clearly if you listen to the chord. But what he does is those da-da-da-da kind of happen in pairs of two in the chunk. So, ba. Ba da 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 ba ba da da ba da ba da boom boom ba da 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 ba ba da ba ba da da. Well, the ones that typically head up the section of two are. It's similar to the, well, it doesn't sound like it, but the like remember at the end of Black Dog. He like sneaks in and it's kind of rushed. Like he sort of rushes this part every time. And he sort of plays ahead of the beat, but it gives it like a tension. Do you know what I mean? It does. I mean, which is awesome. I mean, you know, there's nothing like human time, and it just sounds so great. I mean, it's not a mistake. It's just a beautiful thing. Back in the day before quantization and auto-tune. God, you see all these people getting up on stage now singing. They can't sing to save their lives. Well, not all of them. There's some really talented people, but a lot of these folks are just like... Anyway, on my record, I only used auto-tune on one word. Because, well, that's a long story. So, yeah, so we're going in. So the first two, there's no, okay, it's just, and it comes right out of the crash. Okay, but then the second one is. Okay, so I'll play it from the part through the first two and then two. So. Oh, sorry, I left the thing out. So. Oh, does he crash it there? You know, I mean, it's a complicated song, but let's just stick with it. So, okay. So do you see how I put? Well, actually, there in the second one, I did put a little snare note. But see, on the third one, there's a. So. At the kind of sneaks them in. They're sort of rushed, like. Okay. Sorry I devoted so much wind on that. And then we get to the there's 3 of them before we go into what I call the money shot. Which is one of the finest, that is as Jimmy Page as you can get. If you look in a dictionary under Jimmy Page, there'll be one of those little bar scan codes you scan with your phone, and your phone will go blah 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 blah. It's as Jimmy Page as you get, God love him. Anyway, so what happens there though is Bonham plays the snare drum. He reverses the groove. The time stays the same, but he'll put the snare drum on the 1 and the 3 and the bass drum on the 2 and 4. So well, that technically goes. Okay, you got that? So what happens is coming out of the change. So yeah, I'm going to count it here on my fingers as I always do. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay? And again, that crash after the diddle-da-da isn't on a downbeat, it's on an and. I think it's the and of 3. So ooh, the and of 2, sorry. Okay? And the snare drum will come in on the 1. Like I mean, obviously your instinct is to go with on the bass drum, ba da 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 da, but it doesn't. It goes da da. Oh, I'm sorry. Bear with me. Okay, and generally speaking, that riff alternates between so but in the second part, well, he does it later in the song, where I think it's just one of these. Okay. Anyway, so the way we count that again is it goes. And he doesn't bark the hi-hat there to the last one. So. Okay? But he does smack it hard. Okay? That's what he does there. So and then there's the transition. Again, so it'll go. Snare, not bass drum. He switched it right there, okay? Okay? That's what happens there. Okay. So then when we come out of that part, it's okay? Remember the snare on the 1, and then again at the top of the riff. Da 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 da. Okay. Da 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 boom. Ba. He switches it right there. He switches it back to the proper 1, 2, 3, 4 bass drum, snare drum, bass drum, snare drum. Okay. Ba 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 boom. Ba boom. Ba. Okay. Ba 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 ba. So it's after the second snare. Ba okay. Okay, the and of 4. Ba 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 ba. Okay, it's the and of 4. So ba and again, what happens there is right after that crash again, we go right back into the, okay? So, okay? And you know, I do that, I mean, I admit it. What instead of going, sometimes I'll go, instead of, it's, okay? Or, well, at that top there, I don't think, the snare drum doesn't occur till later, but, so, see, I want to do it again. I'm telling you, I always want to go, so, okay? But then, as we're coming out there, then, after those first 2 always coming into that part, the first 2 are just, from where I'm sitting, not, he sneaks the snare drum in, again, usually at the top of the section every time, but with the exception of the first time. After that, he does the again, right after those crashes, it's back to the so you gotta be careful with those. Okay. My brain is a muck. I gotta, you know, it's a long, complicated bonzo song. You know what the thing is? I know when I listen to it, I always want to add another. So. You know, he might put a little bit of a grace note in there sometimes before the main one at the top because it does sound plain, doesn't it? So, yeah, I think that's what it is. There might be a slight grace note in there in the times where there's not one, but then at the top of it there's a heavier one. So. The song goes on and on. Sorry about it's a long complicated song to me. I mean but it's his Bonham and it's his Zeppelin as you got. So the tune goes on, and then they do another. They do the same thing again. No, they don't do another. They don't do another. God, the song just goes on and on. What happens there? It goes on and on and on and on and on, and then it just, if I remember, it ends ba ba da how you like that. Okay, so but I'm just trying to remember if there's another significant. Yeah, he does do the ba 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 ba. He does that again. Yeah, okay, so, but I think it's after, is it after 6 of them or 5 of them? So instead of 3, I think it goes, or 4, and then it, but anyway, so the lick comes back in. Yeah, it does. Okay, I'm sorry, bear with me here. You know, I'm a little foggy. So, but again, when this one comes back in, I don't think it's, I think this time around it's... a minor detail. Okay, so, and then it goes on, and then the main sections again, ba, da, ba, ba, and then we're back in the solo part again, ba, da, da, da. And then I think there's a couple modulations, blah, but it goes up a step, ba, 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 and it just goes on and on. So I don't want to keep going on and on because I'm rambling. But I'm going to say some stuff about Presence. Presence, great record again, recorded in the basement of this hotel, and Mick Jagger apparently came in because they were going to go in and record the Stones, and so apparently Mick Jagger came in and they sat down, they were talking, and Mick Jagger said something like, "So have you guys just finished the rhythm beds?" And Jimmy Page was like, "No, I'm throwing the last overdubs on Achilles' last on our we're out of here." You know, I don't know if they mixed it at Musicland, but I remember reading that. Mick Jagger was like, he was floored the fact that Zeppelin essentially recorded a whole record in 3 weeks. And I love the Stones. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands. But even though the Stones stuff sounds like it's sort of, they're jamming, which they are, it takes them forever to record a record. I mean, God, you know how the Beatles had the book, The Complete Beatles, where some fellow went through, God love him, and he made notes of all the tapes and stuff they had. It's a great book. Actually, I have one here. I have several of these. I love it. So if you get one of these, The Complete Beatles, well, too bad they don't have The Complete Zeppelin or The Complete Stones, but I'm sure Mick Jagger and the Stones probably have mountains and mountains of tape for each record. They, you know, all different takes and all kinds of stuff. But and another thing about Presence is, if you notice, to the diehard Zeppelin guy, I don't know if they didn't use a different preamp or compressor on Bonham's snare, but he sounds like it tuned his snare a little different. It sounds like it's a little, for lack of a better word, baggier. It doesn't sound quite as crisp. Instead of like, you get more of a, there's more of a, well, for Bonham, a slightly fatbacky sound on it. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, not totally, but it just sounds like, if you really listen to it, it kind of sounds like how most guys would tune up a 6.5. Not really that Bonham-y sounding 6.5, to me. So anyway, thanks again for listening to my diatribes. I'm going to keep the videos coming. I want to make a few more. I want to make one for the Rover and for a couple maybe off the first and second record. And then, of course, keep my Bonzo chats up. So thank you for watching. Thank y'all.